Hi everybody, this is Braysie. Welcome to a Speak Your Truth video blog. Look, raising children these days, it can be very hard. But now you've got the United Nations to help you. So don't you worry. In fact, even if you give your child a little smack like this, come on, that's child abuse. Because you're nothing but a child abuser. If your child is going to run out into the middle of the road and you give them a little smack for doing so, well, now you're a child abuser.
The United Nations is again urging Australia to ban parents from smacking their kids.
Says the report also called on teachers to dob in parents who smack their kids.
It's a hot topic, so let's bring in Seven commentator Darren Hinch in Melbourne.
The UN Convention says that parents can discipline their child, but doesn't spell out why. And then you've got our own commissioner here saying that we should sign this this declaration saying that a child has a right to take their complaint to the United Nations. Now, this is naughty land, and this is crazy.
Well, I was probably one of those guilty parents who did occasionally chastise the children. Pretty gentle smacks, I've got to say. Look, I think that we've got to treat our kids well. I don't think that we ought to say that there's no place ever for a smack.
Can you believe this? They're not your children. They're the United Nations children. They're a bunch of Rockefeller and Rothschild funded politicians now get to tell you what you can and can't do with raising your children. I find this astonishing. Was it bad enough that we gave them 10% of our carbon tax? And what, are they now hearing that we're going to get rid of this corrupt carbon tax? All this money that they were receiving for us for nothing, for doing anything they wanted to with, they must be getting very angry. So I think what happened was they got a slap in the face and then they felt abused because we weren't giving them all this free cash. So they've turned around and started telling us that we're abusing our children. Now, the United Nations are the people that did this kind of activity, and they're the ones that want to tell you how to raise your children. Now, they are the ones that in Sierra Leone, in I think it was about 2002, were guilty, the peacekeepers they were called, of raping women in Sierra Leone. And they were also guilty of sexual abuse against West African refugee children. That's right, children that were displaced from their own homes were then sexually abused by, guess who? The United Nations.
Their findings are disturbing. They say children as young as 6 have been forced to have sex with aid workers or peacekeepers in return for food and money. Others talk of rape and trafficking of children for sex. It's anyone's guess how many victims are still suffering in silence.
I believe that it is plausible for anyone to claim they do not know what the standard is. So if this still goes on, and it is going on, because we continue to have reports through our own mechanisms, as inadequate as they are, we still have to take action.
The abuse is shocking, but not new. The United Nations has been dogged by this problem since the early 1990s, when a number of UN peacekeepers in Cambodia were charged with sexually abusing girls. Similar cases emerged in Congo in recent years.
And then they made home porn movies with weapons inspectors having sadomasochistic and pansexual leather fetishes. And all of this, of course, was put in the New York Post and was reported, and the UN then came in, that's right, the United Nations, the people that want to tell you how to raise your children, trying to block the publication. And this was all detailed in a book. Now, this all came out in 2002 to about 2004, and they're guilty of sex, drugs, and corruption inside all of their United Nations missions. Now, this is through Cambodia, Somalia, Haiti, and of course, Bosnia. Now, this goes on with the UN were hired and known criminals to work as peacekeepers. So they went and got all the perverts and then let them become hired as peacekeepers. This is starting to sound a bit like the Vatican and what they do in the Catholic Church, but that's another story. Not to mention all the harm that the UN has caused to children through their sanctions, such as Syria, but don't get me started there. And of course, all of the harm that they've actually done with vaccines, and of course, burning off farms through Agenda 21, which has displaced children to start with all around the world. So, this wonderful organisation called the United Nations now want to tell Australian families what you can and can't do in regard to raising your children. Well, let's just face it. This criminal organisation might as well start putting patches on their backs and riding around on Harley Davidsons, because that's exactly what they are, and they have no right to start coming into Australian homes and telling Australian parents what they can and can't do in relation to raising their families. They're a criminal organisation, and all they've got is a globalist agenda. They're literally putting in some sort of Stasi type approach or mentality where they want teachers to be able to spy on their children. They want to be able to quiz the students and say, did your parents ever do anything that might constitute you being smacked? Quick, tell the pharmaceutical company so that we can put you on sort of some medication which is going to make you have some sort of condition which might allow you to not experience things like empathy, and then you can go out on a mass machete hacking experience because we don't have guns in Australia. This is what's concerning me. There is a much bigger plan at play here, and people really need to start connecting the dots. Because let's face it, they've already told us we can't have Father Christmas walk down the streets, the same bureaucrats, because some ethnic groups might be upset, and they say, oh, the Muslims won't like it. But let's face it, the Muslims talk about Jesus almost as much as we do. Not to mention the Buddhists are saying, go for your life. And then they tell us, oh, you can't play tiggy at school because it's too rough. And then they go a step further and start putting notes in parents' lunchboxes saying, oh, you can't give your child leftovers because there was too many carbohydrates in their lunch today. This is where we need to start to connect the dots. I want to see parents empowered. I want to see people living. I want to see people start to have their personal sovereignty respected. Could you believe a society where those sorts of things actually occur? We might have a society where people really feel like living and really feel like making a difference. This is Braysie. Love to hear the sort of society you want to live in. Love to hear your opinion.